Welcome to the Tabletop Gaming Guild Show. The Tabletop Gaming Guild Show is all about the memories and experience that playing tabletop games with friends and families can create. And on this amazing episode, we're going to talk about the best and worst of. You're going to find out what that means in a little bit. But before we start, we're going to talk about what we've been playing. And I know Evan's been chomping at the bit to talk about what he's been playing, so we'll start with Evan.
So this last weekend, I had some friends that came over and we got some games in. And I have them here off to the side. And first one, we played Dragon's Gold. So very light negotiation style game where you're an adventuring party and everyone else is an adventuring party and you're killing dragons and giving up loot. Real fun, lightweight game. What I like most about it is once you get the loot out and you're trying to divvy it up amongst yourselves, there is a timer in there and you've got to get in accord with everybody of how we're splitting this up. Otherwise, gone forever. So real fun, lightweight game that you can play. I think it plays up to 6 people, but real good game, real fun. Next game that we played, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. So hidden information game where one person is a murderer in Hong Kong and has to try and get away with said murder by deceiving everybody else and putting false narratives up, and everyone else has to come and work with the forensic scientist to figure out exactly what happened. Another lightweight game, but it's a real fun one, especially if you got people that can really get into the different stories that you can come up with. And one of the few things that, as James always likes to, kill people with radioactive underwear. So those are the ones I really got to play this week. I had a couple other ones, but those are the ones that I could grab real quick and talk about super fast. So how about we go to the right on my screen, which would be Nathan.
Okay, I think everybody can guess what I've been playing.
Monopoly.
Flux.
No, Frosthaven. So there's not a whole lot of new things to talk about. I think we're actually getting relatively close. Probably finish the game in another couple weeks. There's a lot of content out of that. Then I got to figure out what to play next. So I guess just continue on to what John's been playing.
Oh, what have I been playing? Well, I got a few because I haven't really talked since I went and played games at PAX East. So I got to play a couple of things. One of them was a game I think that everyone here would love, and it's the Taco Bell Party Pack game.
Oh, hard sell there. Hard sell.
Yep.
That's
yeah. It's bad. Thing is though, it's hilarious just because of it's like one of those. I would have it just because it looks funny on the shelf, and that's about it.
You remember the time when Burger King was giving you could get video games at Burger King? Remember that? Taco Bell needs to do that for that board game, so I could get like a taco in that game and then be like, give it back after a moment. Sort of like the sort of like how the tacos fast serve too.
Yep. But on the more serious, I played Dreams of Tomorrow.
Okay.
Which was all right. I don't know how I feel on it, but it was kind of a set collection. I mean, it had some interesting mechanics to it, but I don't think it's one I would pick up for myself though.
Did you get to play Shivers there? Because I know they were there.
No, I didn't get a chance to play Shivers there. I did also a lot of video game playing too, to be honest.
They had a funny post, the Shivers ones. They were like, someone is trying to copy our stuff. And they had literally, it's a pop-up book. And they're like, we have copywritten this and people are stealing it. I'm like, you can't copyright a pop-up book. Those have been around forever.
Yeah.
And just
there's the pop-up storybook game. I'm trying to remember what it was called. Oh, Shivers. Oh, yeah, Shivers. Yeah. Oh, I was thinking
there's a couple other pop-up storybooks that weren't very popular board games, but Shivers I think was the most hyped one because it was really cool and it has all this stuff and yeah, that one I knew was there at PAX I was wondering if you saw that one, but
I did see that one there. Yeah. I mean, they've been there PAX. I think I've seen them at Origins and PAX Unplugged as well. Yeah, they've been.
That game, I don't know if it's released yet, but they've been to a lot of conventions before releasing it.
I think it is. I'm not sure, but
Yeah,
I also think they even have an expansion, or like expansions are coming out for it soon, I think.
I'm interested in that one. I think it looks pretty cool. So
yeah.
It got funded and was delivered to a bunch of backers just recently.
Okay. All right, that's even better.
Yep. And then played Starry Night.
Okay.
Which was kind of quasi-cooperative area constellation fulfilling game. Basically, you have all these different constellations on the board, and you have your hidden objectives, which is to activate 2 different constellations on the board. And so you kind of need to wind up just to be able to get to places, helping other people complete constellations, because they allow you to have more movement and get around the board faster, especially if you're trying to get to far, disparate areas. Yeah, it feels like there's a lot to it, but it's also a very pretty game too. Like, the box is very shiny.
Oh, shiny boxes are always a plus.
Yeah.
Shiny boxes.
So yeah, the game looks great. And it was a lot of fun, and I would probably play that one again, but it is not at all a what I would call a complex game. It's kind of like a good, hey, you know what? We just, we want something pretty to look at, and just kind of like so we could talk and, and play the game at the same time. It's kind of like one of those good, like, 30 minutes, in between games while you're waiting for people to arrive or whatever, I would say.
Okay.
There was something else, but I think I forgot to log it, so I don't remember what it was.
Oh, you can't. Oh, if you didn't log your board game, you've never played it. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like the one I played yesterday. That's the worst part of it.
Oh, you gotta log those things. Yeah. Like, I'm trying to desperately remember one of the games I want to talk about right now. We're going to the same problem.
Oh, according to you, I've never played a board game.
Me either.
No, you guys.
Not once.
You guys are just no. Go ahead.
We just collect, Nathan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's that?
Decorum was the other game I played.
I think I've heard of that. What is up with that one?
So basically, it is a game where it's like a cooperative kind of puzzle game. And each of you has your preferences, and you're all roommates. And the only way you can convey your feelings about how everyone is changing the board and, and the decorations is passive aggressively. So you're just the worst roommates. It's like pretty much somebody makes a change, and then everybody says if they love it or hate it, or if they're indifferent.
I'd be like, I am indifferent in an angry way.
Yeah.
As a former roommate of John, I would approve playing this game with him.
Oh no. All right.
Yeah. It definitely, that one's probably, I think, my favorite one that I played when I was out there at PAX.
Sounds pretty good. I was not graced by going to PAX, unfortunately. They have PAX Unplugged coming up. That's like the end of the year.
It's usually around in November. Yeah.
That one looks really cool because it's less of those video games. Ugh. John's like, no, you were wrong. You were wrong there, sir.
You got to do all of it. You got to be the omni gamer. Experience.
It's really cool to see, like, because those video game booths, they do money when they do. Those are amazing. And then you see the board games, you're like, oh man, our industry needs to make more money.
You know what? Some of them are a little more punched up than others,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, one of these days I'm going to make it to one of the new ones. Like, I'll probably be PAX Unplugged if I had to pick between the two, just because it's me. But for games I've played, I like playing kids games with my younger kids. It's a lot of fun. So I got to play a game that's not out yet. It's called Stamp Farm. And in Stamp Farm, it's a really cool idea. You actually have stamps in Stamp Farm. And these are self-inking stamps, so that basically it's an inverted stamp where the ink's on the top, and then when you press down, it releases it. But you roll dice. The kid picks one of the die, who rolled the die, and then they get to put that stamp on their grid. And they're trying to keep all these animals together to score on the largest groups for the basic game. The remaining 2 dice are available to every other kid, which this is actually a lot harder concept than I thought when there's 2 dice out there. So the kid that picks 1 dice, and that's only theirs. And then explaining how the other 2 dice, they don't actually take them. That anyone can take use any of those 2 dice is like for a 4 and a 6-year-old is hard. You're like, no, you don't actually take that die if it's not your turn. You just get to put it in. So that's a basic game. That I think goes great for 4-year-olds. Great level of game. I mean, you to have the fun tactile thing of stamping on a board and trying to keep your animals together. There's even a little reserve barn where you can put 2 stamps. So if you get stuck and you're like, I don't want this stinking rooster, you can put it over there. In the advanced game, which is not that much farther, you have objectives. So you have objectives out that you can meet. The kids have to determine whether they want to meet the objective or get those large groups. The objectives are worth a lot of points, and they're points per every time that you meet that objective. So not a whole lot more on the game, but it is actually a lot more complicated when you're talking about kids that young. So I like that they can go into that. And then once the game's done, I don't think it's going to last past when they're 6 or 7 at all. So it's doesn't have enough to go to that, but for really young, it was good. Neat idea. I also played Rove from Button Shy Games was designed by Scott Alms, which seems to design everything these days. From everywhere. Every time I see a game, it seems to be Scott Alms. Oh man, I love that game. I did talk about that game last week. It's an amazing game. But in Rove, you're basically trying to do this puzzle where you're trying to readjust your module to meet a pattern, and you have to meet that once you meet that pattern, you get to put out another pattern. Well, the trick of the game is you start with 5 cards, and you spend these cards to get action points to move the module around. And as you move past and get different challenges completed, you only draw 1 more card when you go to the next challenge. So it is a very much a strategy game where you're trying to be the most efficient as you possibly can so that you can make it and get to that 7th challenge that I've never made it to because I'm horrible at these games. So I'm going to be playing it for a long time. So I like that one a lot. And crossover, I did get to play Deception Murder in Hong Kong, which before that it was the only... And that game was hilarious for a different reason because I've only ever played it once. We played it there, and I knew the idea. Like it's like a werewolfish style game where everyone has to close their eyes. The investigator says, "Okay, murderer, open your eyes," and the murderer points out the evidence and the evidence and death or whatever, evidence and murder weapon, something like that. So. And then the murderer closes her eyes. They say, "Witness, open your eyes." And they point to the murderer, but they don't know what the weapons are. And you go through the game, and it goes through 3 rounds. And before the end of the 3 rounds, everyone can have 1 accusation of who the murderer is. And if they're right, they win the game. But at that point, the murderer can guess who the witness is. And if the murderer guesses who the witness is, the murderer still wins. Because that's real life. But it's a really fun game. Got really wacky things. The investigator has to can't talk for the whole game. And they have to use their little pawns to point out like clues. Sort of like Mysterium style, only with words. So they'll be like, blood. And you're like, okay. It has a subject header and then it has words under and you pick it. But it's pretty cool. I like it a lot. It was hilarious because as simple as this game is, the group of software engineers that I'm playing with screwed it up. And we had to restart like 4 to 5 times because the witness would forget they're a witness and never open their eyes. the murderer would forget which ones they picked. It was so bad. Yeah, so apparently a master's degree doesn't make you any smarter.
My favorite part of playing that game is everyone's like, oh, when they first play it,
Yeah.
oh, being the forensic scientist is so easy. It's not that hard. And then they actually get to do it, and you just can see like the bead of sweat roll down as they realize.
And you're allowed to use
how am I
flare,
doing
and
this?
he's like, bam, and everyone's like, what? And then they pick the wrong thing, and you can see the investigator going like,
Oh, and it's great when you get one that has no applicable anything to it, and you're like,
oh, that's what I did. I had what I had curtains and syringe. And they're like, oh. He was like, because all the things he had was like hotel room, school, and like, okay, all these have curtains. Like,
yeah, I had a where would the murder took place, and none of them were even close to what it needed to be. So I'm like, I guess here, and that's what they latched on to. And I'm like,
you're allowed to go like, I'm gonna put it down, but then they never get it. They're like, oh, I guess he wasn't sure, but this is pretty close. I'm like, no, because I was shocker, the murderer. Both times we were able to complete the game.
Of course.
Yeah, randomly, I'm always the saboteur or murderer. Statistically impossible, but always occurs.
This game kind of sounds like TV logic. That logic of, oh, you kill off the witness. Suddenly, they have no case against you.
Yeah.
Never mind that you have another crime that you have to conceal.
Absolutely.
And then like a motive that they would know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I strangled the witness with the curtains too.
Side note of this, I can't wait till we get to the topic of conversation of James is always the traitor, and that's our entire show.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I even have other people shuffle it and hand it to me, and I'm like, always the traitor. And the one time I won't be, everyone like, you're the traitor. I'll be like, no, we do not believe you. Okay, so that's what we've been playing. Just want to get into, we're doing a new segment here. It's just going to be news. There's going to be a couple little topics I want to bring up and see what you guys' thoughts are. One of them is really interesting, at least to me, even though I don't get into RPGs very often. That's going to be Peter, who's not here tonight, so he can't defend this at all. I don't know that he would care to. But D&D, Wizard of the Coast, had their summit, which they will invite up the most influential content creators in that sphere and just hang out with them and have food and talk about things. Well, from this summit, one of the things that came out was the much anticipated D&D Beyond is no longer going to be a new version of D&D. That is no longer happening. It's going to be an expansion to D&D, which is pretty surprising since they put so much work into this and so much money into all these different groups giving feedback to this. It seems weird to me that they would essentially, I guess you consider drop D&D Beyond.
Yeah, it is weird because
D&D
when that
one D&D, sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, D&D Beyond is the app,
it's
the
one
platform.
D&D. I said the wrong thing.
Yeah.
yeah, it's odd because they spent a lot of time when it first came out to make sure that everyone knew it was so distinct and different, to now backpedal and be like, we're gonna put this together now.
Yeah.
It might have to do with their having a very vocal audience that didn't like some of the things that they were bringing forward.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they're going to remove some classes. I don't want to really talk about that because I don't understand the underlying reasons for why those classes are racist. If they actually are, great. But I don't understand that, so I'm not going to get into. I mean, if they are that way, they should definitely be removed. But so that might have been part of it because I guess they won't be removed because they're in 5th Ed and it's just an extension of 5th Ed. So yeah, I just don't know. I mean, they've been all over the place. I almost think that OGL that they were coming out was just fake, and they just wanted hype and more attention. Because they sort of were straight on top of that. And normally when companies are doing that, they're not like, oh no, we had a leak. Oh no, people got it. Oh no, everyone's talking about D&D. It's so, oh no. It just seemed fake from Wizards of the Coast. Like, it seemed like they were trying to get everyone invested in D&D and, you know, reinvigorate and get more people. Because that negative press can be good press. Especially like when they're at the end, they were like, you guys have won. Wow, look at that. D&D's even better now. But I don't know what you guys thought about that. I thought that seemed like not all there, because there was never actually a full release of what the OGL actually was.
So Wizards of the Coast had made poor choices for a little while.
But they've
so
also
it's right in line with that.
They also have a very expensive marketing team, so they could be good at their job at one point in their life.
Well, I mean, some of the people on there definitely are. The thing is, though, there was also all the statements from like investor calls where people were like, "Oh, D&D is heavily under monetized." I mean there was a lot of
not incorrect. So, but you did have a goofy guy who's like, "I went to a cocktail party and everyone knew D&D, so therefore it is hit social maximum." I'm like, you had a cocktail party that you set up.
Yeah.
So of course they knew about it. I don't know. I mean, I don't think people can be that goofy, but I guess people can be. I just think it would be masterful if it was all like the whole marketing idea, because it did really well. I mean,
there was still even some stink from what I understand at that summit too. I mean,
there's actually multiple other things I didn't want to get into. Some of those like class things were like, oh, half elf is racist. I don't understand how it would be, but if it is, sure. I don't really want to get into that stuff. I just don't understand. But I'm like, it seems like they're just making statements to just like poke the bear sort of thing. So that got me into like that summit got me into like, maybe they're just trolling to get more people to recognize the D&D name or get back into it or be more invested in the future of it, because people are passionate about it, even if they're not actively playing, and this might get them back actively playing.
I don't know. I mean, the only thing is I don't think I could see them wanting to do something that, you know, demonstratively boosted sales for, you know, Paizo, you know.
It also boosted their sales too, especially in with toys. But Paizo, it did help Paizo a bit. But I don't know that they care about Paizo. Because Paizo still is nothing compared to Wizards of the Coast. Or even Free League. I mean, it's a big one. It's one of the biggest, but it's still, I mean, anything compared to Hasbro is nothing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I was going to go with, I mean, we're talking on scale of, you know, corporate entities. Yeah,
doesn't exist. They don't even have the resources to, if D&D wanted to really be a butt, or Wizards of the Coast really wanted to be a butt, they could probably take out Paizo with their resources and just kill Paizo with frivolous, weird lawsuits. Even if they're completely unjustified, Paizo would go down if they wanted to get rid of them.
But I mean, like that kind of, I don't know, that seems like a pretty bad move on their part, though.
No, I'm not saying they would do that. That'd be a horrible thing to do, but it would just be like, Paizo doesn't have the resources really to compete. Especially with the advertising budget D&D has.
Yeah.
But I do like Pathfinder better than D&D. I think there's a lot of advantages to it, and I like their whole. I like the board game, which is really a card game. I thought that was
the
pretty
Kingmaker
cool.
was it?
No, Kingmaker's a different one. They
Or-
actually had Pathfinder. I thought they called it the board game, but it might be Pathfinder, the card game that came in a giant board game box, and they had millions of expansions for it. And I believe they're on the second edition of it. It's basically a card game. It's a hand management game where you have to go to different locations and go through the decks and take them out.
Yeah, there's another one like with like the different expansions, like Skull and Bones. I think was one of them.
Oh, they have tons. So they have the C one, which I think was Skull and Bones. That's the one I actually had along with the base one. But they had so many expansions and so many cards that it was just insane. So I think I got oversaturated with it, which is what happened to Dominion when they're like, "Here's another set." I'm like, eh. I like right down. I have a giant, 10,000 count card box full of Dominion that hasn't been touched in 6 years because it's just too much to bring out. But yeah, anyone has any more thoughts before I bring up the next news topic?
Well, since we're talking about D&D, I mean, it's kind of on topic, but did you see there's a new app that I'll never play called Monopoly Go?
All right, moving on. We have Funko Games, and Funko Games, I reviewed a couple of their games. They do really lightweight mass market games that are a little bit better than what you would normally pick up like at a Walmart or Target. So they're a little bit more beefier, but not super heavy. They're made for generally geared for younger audiences, but they've put out some pretty good gems. One of them I'm super excited about that's going to be coming out is they're coming out with an Indiana Jones game. So I'm hoping that one's going to be really nice. They had Goonies and Back to the Future, and those were decent. I know we're trying to get a copy of Goonies in, so I know Evan's looking. Or wait, no, you're looking for Back to the Future. Yeah, I'm looking for Indiana Jones. I think that one would be super exciting and fun. It has this really cool. I'll put a picture up on here, but it has a really cool sort of like sand timer thing, and like I don't know if it's call it a pendulum, or it looks like but basically you have a sand timer and it'll keep going, and sort of like a, what does it look like? Like a little gem or something will fall out. So I'm not sure how that actually works in the game, but it looks really cool. And they're going to have a cryptic version of Indiana Jones also. And they're coming out with Star Wars Rivals, which is going to be a very light one. I think it's going to be almost in the same vein as the Funkoverse games that I got to play with my kids and Evan got to play with his kids. It might be a little bit more than the Funkoverse. But it has Star Wars like chibi characters in it, so I'm super excited about just getting those in general. So I don't know. I like how Funko has all these IPs and then comes out with a product, but you have to like approachable lightweight games. So Funkoverse is a really simple 2-player strategy game where you fight. Funkoverse is a very young no, it's not Funkoverse. What is that called?
Kingdomania.
Kingdomania is the other one I was talking about. That was a very young kids one. Kingdomania, you have the Disney characters in 8-bit style, which I think is really cool. And you have to go in and patch the code before the glitches get in the middle. But
yeah, it's a front and back sheet of paper for the rules, and half of it you don't even need. But like, I like the fact that they have really good licensing for it, and that's, you go back to a topic that we talked forever ago, where I talked about the ability of terrible games like Chutes and Ladders and all that, but if you put an IP to make it interesting for somebody, it makes the game approachable. And I think that's what they're really doing. They're taking an IP and making a okay game, but they're making it more approachable, more fun because it has a good IP.
Yeah, and it's better than like Chutes and Ladders or Monopoly.
Oh yeah.
So they put some thought into it, but they also put a lot of thought into their audience, which I appreciate. Their audience is really young kids, so it can't be super complicated. So that's all I wanted to bring up on that, because I'm super excited about the Indiana Jones IP. So, and I love Star Wars. I'm the only one here that likes Star Wars, apparently. This
Me
is
too,
second.
everyone
This
that-
is the second episode. John's like looking behind him, like, yeah, John hates Star Wars. I have no idea what he's talking about. Anyway,
Just so everyone knows that was watching this, we had a 20-minute conversation of Star Wars stuff before we started recording.
that's true. That's true. Yeah. And I love that what is that Darth Vader statue?
No, that's Darth Magus from the Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic game.
Oh man, I love that video game.
And take a look at who this is here.
Indiana
Just
Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't like Indiana Jones either.
And then right there's Doctor Who. So
Yeah. Well, Doctor Who, no taste. No taste, Doctor Who. No, I'm kidding. But not.
Hey, you know what? I got started on it when I was watching it when I lived in Michigan, and we got Canadian channels.
Oh, so I watched it all the time when I was a kid, but half the time we were up in Canada. Also, how I got to see the Muppets on not HBO, because on Canada they were public access; you could watch them. But yeah, I love the earlier Doctor Who's. I just can't get into any of the new stuff.
Wait, earlier you're talking the black and white ones, or you're talking about?
No, they were color when I was watching them.
Yeah,
I mean, once you get to like the
David
second,
Tennant.
yeah.
So, I mean, elders.
James isn't that old.
Not that old. But yeah, so yeah, I could see that. You win this. The dialects will take me out. So one of the things that is important to me, which I'm very sad about, is Funnigan distribution going out, along with the Funnigan online website too. Funnigan distribution did a really good job on delivering Kickstarters and all this stuff. They were a really great distributor, and it's really sad to see a company that great just go under just because of fluctuating shipping costs and not being able to stay on top of that, because it's near impossible. Like if I quote you one day and then it's a different price the other day and I ship it the next day, how's that my fault?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's really sad. I know they're keeping two or three of their physical stores, which I'm really happy that they didn't completely disappear. And their online store should be either shut down now or shortly. But they will honor anything that they're trying to ship in and out. They just won't be taking new stuff. But I was sad about that. And that was a couple weeks ago, or even a little bit more. The last one is, go ahead.
I was about to say, I think their site's still up, but yeah, there's just, I think, nothing in any of the categories when you go through it.
Yeah. It's sad. They were great. Yeah. What can you say? So another one that is interesting to me is going to be that coming to Kickstarter in May, which I'm not going to be talking about a lot of Kickstarters, but I really liked Monster Hunter as a video game. And I don't think this is the first one, but this is Monster Hunter World Icebound, which is going to be launching, and the second one, yeah. And I think the first one was well received. So I might back that just to get the other one, just to have everything, and they have cool miniatures and stuff like that. Yeah, I like that universe. I like that video game. I don't know if any of you guys ever played Monster Hunter before. It's a pretty straightforward video game where you just run around stabbing monsters. And
then collecting all their hides and teeth and then making weapons out of it.
And then for some time, some of the heroes have headphones for unknown reasons, so they can't hear anything while they're attacking. So that's good. But it's a fun game.
Oh, and then there's also the giant chef cat, who makes the most realistic looking food.
Yeah. So like,
he's the best part.
Yeah. So, which anytime you talk about chef cats, the Final Fantasy VII one is the best.
Wait, was he a chef?
Cat Sif?
Well, he was on top of the actual chef.
Oh, right. Yeah,
so the actual chef, he would eat the monster and then gain their ability.
That's right.
Was it Kate Sith? Was that his name?
Kate Sith was the cat.
I can't remember what the thing he was on top of was called.
Yeah, it was like was it just Mog?
Maybe. He pretty much controlled the thing
right.
anyway, so But yeah.
Yeah, I was really interested in this Monster Hunter World. The first game, I haven't played it yet. I almost backed it. I just debated backing. It sounds very similar to what I got with Oathsworn, whereas the idea of you go through a little bit of story, and that story determines what shape you are going into this battle fighting this one monster.
The only problem is I have all of not Kingdom Death Monster. Heck no. I would be poor. I have all of Cthulhu Death May Die, the second season coming in, and that cost a lot. So I don't know if my wife's gonna be too happy about another one, but we'll see. But yeah, that was my news that I had.
There are a couple Kickstarters I'm pretty excited about that are coming out. One of them is Cyclades.
Yeah, that looks really cool. Which they did right before that. They did Blood and Sand. What was the
Kemet
Blood and Sand, which looked amazing.
Right. Well, Cyclades is an older area control type fight game with a auction mechanic where you're bidding for what actions you can take on a given turn. So bidding can become very important because you can make sure you can take certain actions or prevent people from taking certain actions, and be very comfortable with what you're planning because they can't do a specific thing.
Yeah. I'm also wondering if when they do the Cyclades campaign, if they're going to be letting you buy Kemet too.
Yeah, that'd be cool. And I'm hoping they include the expansions for Cyclades, because it had some pretty great expansions, and it looks like they'll definitely be upping the artwork value of it. So
yeah, I think with Blood and Sand they had all the expansions except for the one where you have to buy set. Maybe. I think. I don't know. I could be completely wrong on that. I don't think that was included.
The other big Kickstarter that's coming out, I'm not sure when, is Clank Legacy 2.
Yeah, I heard about that one. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you love Clank, and I mean, you probably have played Clank Legacy if you love Clank, but
and you like Acquisition Incorporated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it basically took Clank and put little modules that you can slowly add, and then once you've played everything, a single module, you can and done the whole campaign, you could put the modules in and out however you feel like and play with whichever modules you like the most, and you can keep playing the game after the legacy game's over, which I thought was pretty cool.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. So let's go ahead.
Well, I had a couple that I wanted to talk about too.
Sure.
That are coming real soon. So GameFound had us a lot of stuff coming out here by the end of the month that they're showcasing. So I pulled it up just so I could talk about it. One of them was on my list of things to acquire last year.
Okay.
Loma is getting a reprint and an expansion, which I'm really excited. Designed by Johnny Pack. Real fun
Is that
game.
New art too?
Same art.
Okay.
Same art. But yeah, it's going to get an expansion reprint. It was really well received in 2019 when it came out. Another one that's coming out in that is Creature Caravan. So Sleeping Gods, where you're roaming in the skies. This is actually going to be taking you on the land. So it's going to be kind of a really cool variation of that game. The big one that was in there though was they're going to have the 10th anniversary collector's edition of Firefly the game. So they're going to be reprinting that and making it available.
Wonder what we're talking about. Firefly the game, the big sprawling game on GameFound.
Yeah.
Okay, so wonder if they're going to be having all the expansions and stuff in one shot or something, or adding new content too.
So it's still in the coming soon, and they don't have a lot of the extra details into it. But from what I understand, it's supposed to be end of the month, which at time of this recording, it's April. So we'll see here in a couple weeks exactly what's going to be plopped into that. But it's really exciting because getting that game is kind of hard at this point.
So what we're going to probably happen is Nathan's going to back that game to get the new content, and then he's going to give me his old Zaya Legends of the Drift system.
Why would I give you Zaya?
Because I want it.
I won't give you Firefly or Zaya. I do have Firefly.
To answer your question, James, if I just scrolled a little bit, so it says everything from Firefly the game and more.
Yeah,
which is underlined.
And there's a lot to that game, like a lot. And there's like just expansions that are just ships, too.
Yeah.
And Gale Force 9 is doing that, and they do a pretty good job with their quality. So it should be pretty good. I'm excited to see those couple of things. There's a couple other ones too that are getting reprints. So it seems like right now is a really good time for crowdsourcing some games, especially through their site.
Yeah.
I'm a little surprised you said Sleeping Gods. There was another expansion, but I haven't got my Distant Skies yet, so I'm not. I mean, I'll definitely back another expansion, but
yeah, I know you were really, really behind that first one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess I do have one news item probably we haven't talked about yet, and it's kind of more on the convention scene. So Origins is coming up in June, and probably about the time that this is going live, it should be close to event registration time for anyone who's going out there for it. That's going to be on April 29th, I think is when they posted. So
let me know so I can crawl into the back of the vehicle and get a free ride there.
I mean, I'm going to go and sleep in the guy's basement. So, you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a friend.
So
I have a friend. Yeah, I have a friend out there. He actually is remodeled his old basement, and he has like multiple beds in the basement.
Okay.
TVs mounted up above. I mean, because he has nothing else to do, I guess, other than to prepare for whenever we're coming out there for the convention. So,
hey, teach their own. It sounds great to me. Okay, so we're going to move on to the best and the worst of, which we're going to give a mechanic, and we're going to say what we think is the worst and debate on what is the best. So I'm going to start off with a simple one. It's going to be a roll and move. So the worst would be Chutes and Ladders, which is not a game. Just roll the dice and you just move whatever, and you might go up a ladder, you might go down a chute or a snake. I
was playing that 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a game. So what is an example of a good roll and move? There's a lot, actually, that work with roll and moves pretty well. One of them is Zaya Legend of the Drift system. But another one that I really liked how they did it was Jamaica. In the game of Jamaica, you are trying to race around the islands or whatever. You're trying to race around the island of Jamaica, and the first one to the end of the line wins. And you get points for different things. But anyway, when you roll your dice on your turn, you get to pick two of the cards out of your hand and put the dice on either one. And then everyone picks which dice they get to use to move their ships. Pretty simple. Like it. It is a roll and move technically. You're rolling and then you're selecting one of them to move. But there's a lot of strategy in which one you pick because they have different abilities on each of those cards, and whether you're going to be weapons or you're not, or you're going to hang back and try to time your thing so you can shoot the other ship as it goes by and steal their cargo, because part of your points is cargo. Really like how they did that roll and move. Do you guys have a roll and move that you think did well? Or do you have something worse than Chutes and Ladders?
I'm not sure one that necessarily did well, but I think the big distinction of whether what it does well or poorly is you have to be able to mitigate that roll. If you can't mitigate that roll, the game is just playing itself, and you're just along.
Well, the ghost fighting monsters, you couldn't mitigate the roll, but the distance between the rooms was so short anyway, it didn't matter.
So a good game that it was pretty much destroyed by roll and move is Hero Quest, because the roll and move portion of it just made the game very hard because you had to stay together, but then you have different speeds that people can move. And then, oh, look, I rolled a 12. Oh, I rolled a 3. Well, the person that rolled 12 is probably the stupid wizard who's going to get eaten and die.
Dwarf, actually, technically, but yeah.
It's just, if it didn't have a roll and move element, the game would have been better.
Yeah, but it's at a time and an age when roll and move was the mechanic for moving. But I agree with you. I think it was very poor design for that. But you're talking about a game where the main character that you deal with is called Mentor, who is your mentor.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Not to pull away from. I mean, I had so much fun with that game, but
I loved it. Loved the game.
Yeah.
But roll move was terrible.
Yeah, the roll and move does feel bad in it. I mean, there are some things you kind of mitigate it. If you roll poorly, you can just stay in the room and search for treasure, or.
So John has the new print, and I believe you have the old one too, right?
I have that one, and I have even some of the middle prints.
Okay, so now it's up to John to make a fan version that fixes the roll and move portion of Hero Quest. Maybe like a point buy system.
Wouldn't the fan version that makes it playable be Gloomhaven?
Well, that is a vastly different game. I would say if you want something that is Hero Quest in essence that fixes that issue, then you're going to probably look at Descent Journey into Darkness.
Yeah.
That game actually is Hero Quest with the roll and move portion fixed. And of course, so much content that it's crazy. I love that game, and I love the second edition of the game, and that is all that is wonderful with Hero Quest. Hero Quest is wonderful. When you run into a room, you throw your dice, you're like, I'm hitting things. You get that feeling from Descent Journey into the Dark. You still get hey, I'm going to build up, have these weapons, I'm going to smacking stuff, I'm rolling dice, chucking them everywhere. Awesome.
I have two examples of games that did roll and move bad in the same way. And that's Clue and 221B Baker Street. Both have the same basic concept of you're going to different rooms, trying to gather clues and solve a puzzle, a murder mystery, or something along that lines. But you have to roll to get to them from room to room. It's like, what is the whole purpose of? There is like no purpose to actually making you have to roll to get to the room. It's just making the game longer intentionally.
Yeah. 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 So, anyone else have a mechanic that they want to show the worst of and best of? Because I have more.
How about 4X? Would that count as a mechanic?
Well, so dudes on the map, 4X. So 4X is a little harder because you have to have all fours for it to be that way.
Yeah. Because I'm just trying to think of games that were like that, and one that I know of that does it just unsatisfactorily was Ad Astra.
I haven't played.
I don't know if you guys are. Yeah, the components look great, and there's like the hint of a good game there, but it's just once you get to where you're scoring the points for it, it's just bad. I don't know. And also they're because kind of part of 4X is going out and collecting the resources that you're doing for, everything else. And that's also almost
your exploit
up to random chance. Yeah. And the exploit part of it doesn't feel good. Because that's just pure happenstance. If you manage to find, that particular resource, if you got lucky before somebody else plays to harvest that resource, because it's also completely random on which ones get mined, because everybody's playing randomly from their hand, basically, at points of the game, because you don't have any other choice. And yeah, it's just everything, it's just like just slightly, just everything just feels bad. And I really wanted to like it.
So now it's time to pick on John. Another bad one is Civilization, the board game. No kidding.
No. No.
No. So what's your great example or best of example for 4X?
Well, there's the obvious. There's two, I think, really good obvious answers. And one of them is sitting right above your head in the camera shot. Yeah. That I'll play that any day, every day.
That is, I think, the best perfect 4X game, other than taking 8 to 10 hours. It is the best.
For something a little bit less time, maybe Scythe. I think with Scythe, because there's
I don't know if
there's exploiting, there's expanding,
there's not really
and there's extermination.
It's mild. I could see
it's
where
a
you
mild
could make
extermination. But
Scythe is an awesome game. I love Scythe. It's one of the best Stonemaier games out there. He makes a lot of really good games. It's just one of my favorite. It's a very mechanical game, which I like, and it's not a mechanical in a bad way. It's mechanical in a good way. So it's super easy to teach because all your turns are mechanicals. They're really mechanical. They're very quick. And I just enjoy that game. I never really saw it as a 4X game, but I could see what you're talking about.
A 4X adjacent.
yeah,
It
it's like
does have the stuff. It just, some of them are
almost.
really light. So it's just like, you know.
Yeah, the exploration is just, you get to the icons, you get a reward, I mean, the other 3X's are a little bit stronger, and the exploration is the weak link.
Well,
there.
you still got good exploration in the game because you have those. You can go get those exploration tokens, and you have those events that trigger. I think that's really good. I think the extermination part's weak in it, and mainly because it's not a focus of the game. I know it's mech combat, but there's not much combat. You don't have an advantage per se, other than like resource denial or other stuff. You get punished pretty heavily for combat in the game if there's workers around. So a lot of times good players or players that play a lot will tag workers along with their mech. Just to say like, hey, no, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And you can only get up to 2 stars, I believe, from combat unless you're a specific faction.
Yeah. But I mean, there's also not that many stars needed to cause the end game too. So I mean,
like it's 7, I believe, right?
Yeah. So I mean, having it where you get much more than 2 or 3, would take away from all the other aspects of the,
True.
Of the game,
and the real thing is like getting the points for all the different end game goals. Is getting up on that track.
Yep.
But yeah,
I'm not entirely sure. I should mention this because sadly, this game, I don't think it's ever coming out. It's a Kickstarter that failed. It's called Cruise of Ariadness. I think did 4X pretty well.
Yeah.
And basically, you're exploring the galaxy, trying to gear up, and eventually the big bad comes out, and you have to semi-cooperatively try and fight this big bad. And
you're one of the few people with a copy of it.
Yes. But yeah, I was really sad when they didn't make it into actual production.
Yeah, I think it might have been somewhat the artwork, but
there was some things that needed cleaned up, but since it was a prototype, I figured okay, they would have time to actually do that.
If they had a successful Kickstarter, they would have probably, and it would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On that sad note.
All right. Now Nathan brought us all down.
Yep.
Was there other 4Xs you guys wanted to talk about?
I mean, I think the king is still Twilight Imperium for 4X. I mean, it's really hard. Like, it's very hard to talk about 4X and you're not comparing it to Twilight Imperium. So that just in the fact that you were comparing it all the time to it means like it is the template. So
yeah, I mean,
Zaya is also up there, but it's never was as available as Twilight Imperium, so it's not as many people have played it.
I think it's lacking a little bit more in the heavy player interaction that Twilight Imperium has. Twilight Imperium is very much a very heavy negotiation game, even though, it's outside of the game somewhat, and it really pulls you in. So, like, you play Twilight Imperium for 8 hours, you're like, wow, that felt like 1 or 2.
Well, Zaya was a lot more sandbox, so you could interact pretty intensely if you wanted to, or you can just avoid each other and never interact whatsoever.
Well, the problem with like sandbox games, not that this are actually a problem, but the problem with comparing it to like Twilight Imperium is because you can just go off and do things. People just go off and do things, so they're playing a solo game for the length of the game, pretty much. That happens a lot, even with Star Wars Outer Rim, which I love. I think the expansion definitely changed that. It got the players interacting a lot more, but the original base game, it was just pretty much solo. Just go do your thing.
Yeah, then there's like Eclipse, which I don't feel like it's more of that problem. Like, especially some of the races on there just feels like you're just playing a game by yourself eventually. Like, and like just wanting to explore your part of space and like never interact, or I don't know. I never was a huge fan of Clips.
I'm not
myself.
I mean, I have Eclipse. It's fine. I didn't back the new version of it. It's definitely the Euro version. But I agree with you. The other thing is like there was a ton of problems with the base game of Eclipse, with technologies and stuff like that. The missiles were just broken. Like you get to fire first with the missiles, and they're like, oh well, people have like one or two things that can fire missiles. No, actually, all you do is be able to fire missiles. So you're like, you come in and you're just all dead.
Yep.
But the expansion, which I think was called the Ancients, added a bunch of text to correct this. But then you end up where the game is geared to, I need to get these texts. I have to have these texts because I have to protect myself from the jerk with missiles. So I don't know.
And it's also random which texts even show up, and
Yeah.
you're competing to get them. Yeah, I prefer having the tech tree, like you get with
Yeah.
Civilization or with Twilight.
Imperium. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what you can do. You have all the
Yep.
cards that you can possibly do there. So, with the exception of sometimes you get cards that show up for different reasons later in the game, but those aren't game changing. They're just help.
I actually have a 4X game right behind me by chance called Merchants of Venus. It is essentially 4X, but it's more like 4X combined with trading on the Mediterranean in space. So
Yeah, I don't know if that
4X focused on trading, though.
Because
It still has all the 4X elements, but the biggest focus is on the trading elements.
you don't get any more pieces in Merchants of Venus, right?
Nah, you do have a point. I think you only get one ship, but you can up. It's been a little while. I think
It's
you can
more.
upgrade
I think it
them.
more would be like full on area control style game, but I could see where it'd be adjacent. So I'll give you half a credit. So yeah. So Evan, do you have one you want to pick on? Maybe that someone else had a game that they love that's going to be destroyed.
4X wise or just in general
just
here?
a game mechanic, the worst of
Okay.
and then best of.
So, I want to talk about economic games,
Okay.
especially like resource management. So, one game that I really like that does resource management pretty well is a game that we played on here, Cavern Tavern. So you got 8 resources. It's a worker placement, but actually dice placement, as you're trying to complete orders for the different patrons coming in. So depending on what you roll, you have 4 die, or if you're in last place, you have 5 die. You can combine die to get to the different spots to get the resources and fulfill these drink orders, collect points as time goes on, and it does it really well. For as much resources as there are there. Very cleanly, not perfect, but really good. And the game's enjoyable. I really enjoy it. It's a favorite of my wife and I, so we play it frequently. Now, I feel so bad saying this for a game that doesn't do it very well, just because the designer just recently passed away. And that, I think, is Catan. I think that the economic portion of the game is not that good.
So I don't know if that's the worst. I think that one's an example of like a medium or low, because you have to look at the economic games that were before it, because Catan was like revolutionary for it. So I can see where you get your point on there, but games that have like horrible resource management aspects to them.
So I think it's just as games jumped into the future.
Yeah.
This game.
Well, yeah, it didn't age well. No.
It did not age well.
Rolling
at
for
all.
your resources is never good.
It's never good. It's 2 die, and if you make 1 to 2 poor choices at the very beginning of the game, and the dice do not favor you, you're begging for the rest of the game. Can I get your sheep for my stone? And
why would I want to do that?
no incentive. And then you can make the joke, that everyone makes of wood and sheep, and we all know that one. But yeah,
I don't know. I prefer rock hard stone. So
Yeah, luck can be an important element to a lot of games, especially even in resource management. But I think Catan is too heavy on the luck element.
Yeah,
it's mainly one of those first games where you can negotiate. Like a horrible resource management game would be like Monopoly. Monopoly, your resource is money. And if you play it correctly, it's really hard to preserve that resource because you can't roll the dice and go to a spot and not buy it. If you don't buy it, it goes for auction, which is worse. So you're really beholden to where you end up at, and the only real decisions you get in the game itself is really where you build your houses with what you got and your trades. So you can trade in Monopoly. But I think that one's a worse version of resource management than Catan. I think Catan was a jump up from that. It removed a lot of the fluff that Monopoly had that was not important.
Yeah, and the only way that you can mitigate anything with Catan is by banking your luck on rolling a 7. But as soon as you drop a robber next to somebody, like everyone hates you. So it's like, yeah.
Or you do it all the time, so everyone knows you're going to do it, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I mean, you could always trade 4 or the same resource into the bank. So you did have a little bit in there. And your first placement of where you put your stuff in the beginning is super, super important. Really, really important. You can have a really bad game in Catan by not putting it in the right spot.
It's just one choice, and the game is you're done. Unfortunately, it's just it did not age well, and I think the game could have aged better if we didn't make as big and jumps and leaps in game technology, I guess you want to say. But I mean, it is what it is, unfortunately. Like I said, I feel bad for mentioning it just because of, the designer just passed away.
I mean, he made a great game that bridged mass market to board game industry itself. So, or like hobby level board games, I should say. He did and he brought a lot of people into the hobby. So it was an amazing contribution to the board game hobby. So.
Yeah, so many copies sold. I think it's something like 10 million total. Like it's a ridiculous number. So many awards, but it does not stand up to the test of time, unfortunately.
Very few people can say that they can survive off of just inventing one game. Very few.
I have a good example of a bad one. It's resource management light or very light. It's called a game called Kahlua. Now in Kahlua,
I like to drink that.
You are playing as gods.
Oh, now I remember. Yeah.
Yeah, your resource is like basically the people that worship you. But if you don't worship you enough, you need to make bad things happen to them and kill them off so they worship you more. It's like a very cynical, weirdly uncomfortable, semi-religious game that isn't good in any way. And slightly offensive, too.
So what would be a good example of one that's the best? Pipeline. Yeah. Furnace, Pipeline.
I could go and grab my copy of Furnace too, I guess. But yeah, I decided to go with Pipeline instead.
I have played neither of those.
Generally, it does well when you combine it with engine building, which is what Furnace does. So you get more and more resources as the game goes because you're building this cool engine and it's ramping up and it gives you a nice art to the game.
Okay.
And Pipeline has pipe puzzle on top of the economic resource engine, and like trying to get the most out of your pieces.
Well, another actually real good example of it too, and mentioned it earlier, I just had to grab it off the shelf again.
Beer and bread.
So getting the resources and figuring out what you want to do it, but also managing the cards that you're playing out, because into the next phase those are what are you using again. So you have to, there's a lot of layers of management you have to do with that. And it's not just straight resources, but it's a card that you're going to be using for resources again. And it does a great job. It's called Alms.
Yeah, so like I'm gonna say something that's a little blasphemy for me. So we're gonna get real here. You can come in close, and we're gonna talk about this right now. But Eric M. Lang is a great, great designer. Love Eric M. Lang, but Scott Alms has been amazing. And if Eric M. Lang, I don't know if you're listening to this and you don't come out with another game. I mean, Scott Alms is on your heels. You might have a new rock star. Scott Alms is a rock star. He's amazing. He does so many games for other, like so many games.
Yeah, I mean, if Eric M. Lang just like, answers our emails and comes on the, for an interview.
There you go.
He'll cement his love, James's love to him forever.
So yeah. So that was my little bit of blasphemy. So also, Eric M. Lang got mentioned again.
Yeah, I was trying to avoid that.
You can never avoid it. It must happen. Okay, so I have another one here, and I'm not sure what the greatest one, because there's a lot of games that are. I do actually know what the greatest one is. I know. So you have Risk, which I think is one of the worst dudes on the map game ever created. It was good for when it got created like 60, 70 years ago. Sure, that's how you did it. Axis and Allies kicked its butt. There's no comparison between the two. But I think Blood Rage is like the perfect example of how to do it right. You remove a lot of the stuff that doesn't matter and get just into the aggressive part of the dudes on the map thing, which I like. X's and Allies has a huge problem with just camping out in spots, or like frickin' Australia, and a lot of problems with it. Axis and Allies is an asymmetric style game that fixes a lot of those, and it's a little bit cleaner and a little bit more strategy oriented. Not that Risk isn't a strategy oriented game, but it just is a more reliable strategy game. It's more fixed. You still roll dice to resolve combat in Axis and Allies. You roll nothing in Blood Rage. So I don't know what you guys feel about that. And I probably had everyone's not liking me hating on Risk that much, but there's much better stuff.
Dudes on the Map has a potential shortfall that a designer has to avoid, and if they don't avoid that shortfall, the game is going to be a failure. And that shortfall is the potential for everybody to gang up on one person who's doing well. Or
no, everyone gangs up on Nathan. That's fine.
And a game that I thought fell into that trap a little too hard was Mezzo, which I was really excited about, and there was a lot of things I like about that game, but every time I played it, every single player was trying to hit me, and I never got any real points in that game because I was just getting beaten the entire game. I
love that. Mezzo is one of the few Aztec games that is like has to do with the Aztec gods, and it's one of those games that you had to do the Kickstarter. Because in the base game, I think there's only like 4 gods, period, and it's up to 4 players or something like that. And it's just like you need all those for replayability, and they're awesome. So you don't want to be like, oh yeah, I'll just be the same one, I guess, because I can't. Everyone picked the other ones. So I think it suffered from, which was made by Colossal Games, I believe. I think the outside of the Kickstarter, it suffered from the lack of the Kickstarter content. Like it should have all been together. Like it shouldn't have been like, hey, here's a game with the bare minimal. I do like that game, but I can see what Nathan's talking about. It's a very heavy take, that game. It has a lot to do with sacrificing your own people or getting your own people sacrificed by your other opponent. It has a really heavy area control aspect to the game. If Blood Rage didn't exist, or Rising Sun, it would probably be pretty high up on my list. But Rising Sun and Blood Rage are both better examples of the same sort of idea.
I do have
So
to say, Mezzo has some of the coolest minis I have.
Oh yeah,
I've ever seen.
the minis in Mezzo are amazing.
So I agree. Risk is not great. Base risk. It's just an issue with the map. Really, is where it comes down to, because you can get a lot of the other.
In the map. But go ahead.
When you get into a lot of different versions of Risk, like Lord of the Rings Risk or Game of Thrones Risk, they play better. They don't play great. None of them play great.
The ones
by
that
all
get
means.
rid of the set collection, original set collection rules, play a lot better. Risk 2040 is, I think, one of the best examples of a good Risk. I still, it's still not great, but it's I think it's
yeah, none of them are great by any means, but they're better than just basic Risk. But Dudes on the Map, one good example that I really like is Mare Nostrum.
Okay.
So I do like that one just because it combines more than just the dudes on a map. So you just can't focus on beating down on one person, because that person could still win if they can navigate a couple other things and still navigate their empire to victory. The last time I played this, a guy, I think he only had like 3 territories total, but he ended up winning the game because he was able to trade really well.
Okay.
And managed to complete a bunch of the wonders. Like it did a really great job. But Dudes on a Map is super, super important for that game. So
yeah. Go ahead.
Yep. I was gonna say, you know what? Risk has kind of a weird place for me. Let's just say that I didn't have a lot of people to play board games with when I was younger. So I might have played 6-player Risk where I played all 6 players.
Okay, so this just went to depressing.
Yeah.
Some people play chess by themselves, but that's on another level.
Yeah.
I might have done the same
that,
thing at some point.
Now we're talking about sad people. I did that with Axis and Allies.
Yeah.
So that's just as bad.
I don't know. Is it, or is it maybe worse?
I don't know. It's bad either way.
It's bad. Yeah.
It's not a good thing. They're not solo games. I can tell you that.
No. You want Dudes on a Map game that I liked? I don't know if a lot of other people will agree. I know Evan has at least played it, because that would be Attack. I personally really like it because it's, not just Dudes on a Map, because there's also neutral territories, and also just by the nature of how the game is set up, if you're playing with the expansions, everyone is going to gang up on somebody else. It's actually almost part of it, because the fascist, whoever is the fascist group, regime player on the board, they get points by just steamrolling and attacking all the neutral territories around them. Yeah. And then everybody else is like, oh, they're running away with it. We got to take down the fascists. And, so there's kind of like that, almost just by the mechanics, it invokes the like World War II theme that it has.
Yeah, tangentially related to it, and a Dudes on the Map game that I think is really, really good is Memoir 44, with the commands and color style combat, like with the Napoleon system and other stuff like that, with where you have like three lanes, and when you play your cards, you can fire off one of those lanes and move those units. Sometimes multiple lanes, but it's normally left, right, or center, basically. I really like that. I think that did a really great job. And it is Dudes on the Map, and you are rolling dice in Memoir 44.
So a really unusual Dudes on the Map that actually combines an economic game with Dudes on the Map is Imperial 2030.
I didn't play that game. Okay.
So this is a really strange in that you never control you never actually own any of the units on the map. What you do is you're investing in countries, and you use those countries' money to build units and use those to attack other countries, and you're increasing the value of investments by having these countries do well. So it's a very unique. I haven't played another game that does quite the same thing.
Yeah, so I think that that covered those mechanics. Go ahead.
I had one mechanic I want to talk about.
Sure, yeah. Let's move on to a different mechanic. Yep.
Exploration, which is a mechanic part of 4X, but in particular, this is a game mechanic I thought was never really going to be done well, and it's starting to get done well now. The idea of really feeling like you're exploring the unknown and uncovering things and not having any idea what you could be finding, but without feeling completely lost. And a game that does it poorly.
7 Continent.
Yes.
Oh, I do it. That game is great on paper.
I love the idea, but you're wandering around aimlessly for hours on end until you finally get a hint. If you're lucky, you eventually get a hint of what you're supposed to be doing.
And the problem is it just keeps going on and on and on. So it's me.
I've played this game twice. The first game took me 4 hours, and then I died and didn't find any hint of what I was supposed to be doing. The second game, I played over 2 days. We're about 10 hours in before I found a hint of where I was supposed to be, what I was supposed to be doing. It's not supposed to be that long. You're not supposed to be able to survive that long. We were just playing really well. We were able to survive. But the worst part is we found a hint of where we were supposed to go. We were running out of food. We were about to die. So we went off on a tangent, went to a cave that took us to a whole another section of the map, had us wipe the entire board. We had no clue how to get back to that place. That took us 10 hours to get to.
Yeah.
Anyways, obviously I have issues with my place of Side of the Continent, but one that I think does it really well is Sleeping Gods.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty obvious one. The whole core of that is you have an ongoing story with lots of branches, and where you explore unlocks different parts of that story that are really interesting, but also mechanically meaningful. You're getting all these cool things that can help you later in the game and help you explore and give you hints of where else you should explore until you finally get to the end and have to do this big epic battle.
I think another good example of that would be Forgotten Waters.
I do like Forgotten Waters. That's a great game, and especially since they offloaded those crossroads cards onto the app, so it actually is more related to what you're doing. And it is 100% exploration because you have no clue what the heck's happening at different points. You go somewhere and then something will happen. It's related, but even if you replay that map, it's different. So I really, really, really think that's a good example.
Yeah, I really like the crossroads system that they have, and since they put it onto an app, it's just better.
Yeah. But
there's another pitfall in the exploration area where you get, especially when you start adding stories, is yes, sometimes the reward for exploring can be story elements, but you have to tie that to the mechanics. This War of Mine is an example where everywhere you go, there's like, we found one section. There's always an option that you never want to go there because, all it gives you is a story. There's no mechanical benefit to go there, but it costs you a lot of resources. So you want to go there for story reasons, but you shouldn't mechanically.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. So anyone else have a mechanic that they want to talk about, the bad and the good? Or do you want to move on to the silly game? It's going to be very difficult, by the way, and I can't tell you what it is ahead of time because then you get a jump start. You guys ready? All right, so let's go into the silly game. All right, so this is going to be a game where who won the last one, by the way?
You did.
Oh, I didn't realize that, but yeah, okay. All right, so I'm going to give you a topic, and you are going to have to name things as fast as possible within 60 seconds. Everyone's going to get a different topic and 2 shots. So it's going around. You're going to get 2 shots. Whoever has the most at the end wins. If there's a tie, you got to fight each other to death. So, stuff like that. Yeah. But with board games somehow. I had to figure that out. Anyway, let's start with Nathan because I'm going to throw him under the bus. You're going to have 60 seconds to name as many things that actually have to do with these. And I'm just going to be counting. So if either the two panel people feel that something that he said is not related to this, then you let me know and I'll subtract that from his score. All right. So, Nathan, you have to name Marvel characters. Go.
Thor, Loki, Captain America, Black Panther, Ant-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Widow, Spider-Man, Venom, Carnage. Oh, I'm not good at this.
You're halfway.
Go with their villains.
Yeah, villains. Oh yeah, Thanos.
There you go.
Wong. Doctor Strange is, yeah. I'm trying to think of the name of the cape. Why am I trying to think of the name of the cape? With all the Marvel Snap I've been playing, I should know.
All right, time. I got 12. Did he name any non-Marvel characters?
No.
He's good.
I tried pushing. I was like, how about villains? Like, you're already in Spider-Man, so you should have gone Green Goblin, Lizard, Dr. Mysterio. It's like there was.
Yeah.
When the lights are on, sometimes it's hard.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I've not read many. I've read almost no comics, so it's like almost exclusively from either Marvel Snap or the MCU.
All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and do John. All right. So John has to name characters in Indiana Jones. Ready? Go.
All right. Well, obviously Indiana Jones. We got Marianne. We got man, there's not that. I mean, I guess his father, Dr. Jones. You got the guy who got lost in his own museum.
Mm-hmm. Who's his name?
Yeah.
This is really mean, by the way.
Yeah, this is way more detailed. Like, there's like 3 million Marvel characters.
You know.
All right.
You'll get another one.
We got Mutt. Okay. We go with that. No
time for love, Dr. Jones.
Yeah. Yes. Short round.
Yeah. Which he became a director.
Yeah. And then you betrayed Shiva. She kills a guy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Shiva should count.
Not time.
Balaram.
So you got 6.
Wasn't the girl that fell trying to get the Holy Grail Elsa?
Yeah, that was her name. Yeah. Yep, Elsa. Yep.
There's also one of the people that were guarding the cup.
Yeah, it was like the night. Yeah, there's like so many characters. Like, I could tell you what they look like,
and there's like a billion Nazi names. Ones that you're just
I know.
Hans.
Yeah. So yeah, Nathan's gonna get a hard one. He comes back. I'm just alternating them because I want to throw you guys off balance. So you'll have a nicer one when you get back. That you should
at least you do
well with, or just leave. No kidding. All right.
At least you gave him an IP that he really loves.
Yeah.
Marvel,
well, I mean, he likes Indiana Jones, so
yeah,
it's just harder because it's just one of those things.
There's just not like the 3 billion characters, and like some of them are just like I was like, oh yeah, like the knights, like I remember who they are and what they do.
Yeah. All right, Evan, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Names of people in Harry Potter. Ready, set, go.
Hermione, Ron, Harry, Snape, Dumbledore, Hagrid, Draco, Luna, Malfoy. Oh, I said Draco. Arthur Weasley, Ginny Weasley.
You're halfway there.
Goyle, Um, McGonagall, Flitwick, Voldemort, Ollivander.
Time. So I got 16. Did he do any duplicates anywhere?
I mean, other than the one he noted, Malfoy.
Yeah, I took that one
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
I was getting so ready to make a joke about not saying the name Voldemort.
Yeah, I was waiting for that one too.
Yeah.
So I got 16, 12, and 6.
Hey, you know what? At least I got one of my villains from Indiana Jones. I got, Molaram.
Yep. So now Nathan's gonna have a harder one. We'll see how many he gets. All right, Nathan. You get, so you're just remember your scores for right now because I'm gonna have a hard time remembering because I don't have anything written down. So Evan 16, Nathan 12, John 6. All right. So Nathan, yours is characters from Goonies. Go.
Chuck. I haven't watched Goonies since the 90s.
There you go.
Chuck is not a character.
Oh.
Also
Shuffle.
is also a tie-in to the same actor who was one in the Indiana Jones games or movies too, which was Short Round, but not Short Round in Goonies.
I've watched. I mean, I've maybe watched it once or twice in the 90s. I don't know any of them.
Sounds like Nathan's gonna be at 12.
Obviously, there's one that hits him. I don't know any of their names.
You don't know what the big guy's name was?
No, I do not.
Did he scream his name like 800 times in the movie? What about the smart guy with all the gadgets?
No. I don't even remember one scene.
All right, so that was Nathan's hard one, and he's 0. So currently Evan's winning.
Wow.
All right, so this is going to be John's easy one. All right, so so you're at 6. We're gonna see how much better. All right, you have to name DC characters. Go.
All right. Well, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, The Flash, Black Lightning. We've got let's see here. We go with villains. We can go with Joker. We got the Penguin. We've got Mr. Freeze. We've got going into other people's villains. We got Cheetah. We've got what is it? Bizarro. We've got Mixplex, whatever, Mr. Mixplex. We've got let's see here. Nightwing, we've got Robin, we've got Batgirl, we have the League of Shadows.
All right, stop. Yeah, 16. All right, so that puts you up to 22. So that means that Evan needs to get 6 or more for his. And technically, he had his hard one already. So
I live in a house with
hard
Potter
one.
fans.
Yeah, I was about to say, wait, Harry Potter's supposed to be a hard one?
I never read all the books.
He did read all the. I knew he read all the books and he had all that, so I was like, that was easy for him. So let's go ahead. What would be a hard one for you? Because the next one was going to be Star Wars, and you just destroy that. So that's not fair. The job would be like, no.
Well, what?
Who knew the shenanigans?
Yeah, like I don't know if I would have been able to do 16 in Harry Potter, but I at least would have gotten probably even more than 6 because. Like those just unfortunately too many things I've heard recently, at least.
I'm not even sure if there is 16 characters in the Goonies.
Yeah.
Pull up IMDb and find out.
No, there's a lot of characters in Goonies. Because you got the parents, they all had names.
Did they?
It's just a harder one.
Did they?
Yeah, most of the parents all had names.
Mm.
They did mention them when they're on the beach too. when they found.
I was trying to hint to you, Nathan. You know, One Eye Willie.
Yeah, One Eye Willie.
When I will, yeah.
As I said, I watched last time I watched it was 30 years, more than 30 years ago.
All right. So Evan has seen some of The Mandalorian, right?
All except for the newest episode.
All right. So name Mandalorian characters. Go.
Din Djarin, Bo-Katan, Sabine Wren, the Armorer, Paz Vizsla, would you count Darth Maul since he took over? Boba Fett, Jango Fett. I think that should have me my 6 at least. That's all I can think of.
So technically, Boba Fett wasn't in The Mandalorian. And Jango Fett wasn't in The Mandalorian. And Sabine Wren wasn't in The Mandalorian. Which is...
Oh, you just wanted The Mandalorian. Oh,
yeah. No! So, because
you
of
didn't even mention Grogu?
You didn't mention Grogu?
I was naming Mandalorians.
Oh, no. It was the show. So, due to a unfortunate technicality, John wins.
Hey, you know what? Technical win is still a win.
Technical win, still a win. So that was the silly game. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're going to go in with the new segments now. We're going to do news, a short topic, what we've been playing first, news, short topic, and then silly game. So, go ahead.
Which I would like to say, before we close off, I think we can do one for you, James. I already have it pulled up.
Oh, no.
We'll just
give I'm the host of this game.
We'll just give you one round to see
Okay.
if you can beat John's score of, what was it?
22.
22. 60 seconds.
Okay. I'm
Name?
gonna do really bad.
Eric M. Lang Games.
Oh, man. So he doesn't have that many games. Well, I mean, he actually does.
566 according to BGG.
All right, so Blood Rage, Ankh, Rising Sun, Quarriors. What's that dice game that came after Quarriors? It had a D&D theme on it. I'm going to get just wasting time on this. He also did Zombicide. He also did Cthulhu Death May Die. He did... oh, no. I'm not going to win this. So, what's that other game? It wasn't Quarriors. Oh, gosh, darn it. He also did a train game with dice that you roll. I also can't remember the name of the game. Oh, no, I'm doing bad.
15 seconds.
15 seconds. I have lost. This is unfair. He technically only co-designed Cthulhu Death May Die. That was with Rob Davio anyway.
And time.
Yeah.
That was.
What was that? What was the
22.
game? Yeah, what was the game that came after Quarriors that he designed? It was a collectible game that had Marvel that you rolled the dice for, D&D. They did Warhammer, and
Dice Masters.
Dice Masters, yeah, Dice Masters was the game. I played a lot of that.
You mentioned The Godfather.
Godfather was another game that was. I never actually owned The Godfather, but it was a pretty fun game. What was the train game? If you're looking up the list,
There's so many in here.
Yeah. I just didn't know that many. I know he's designed a lot.
He could have been cheap and probably named off some expansions.
Oh, I could have named all of Zombicide now that I'm thinking about it, and I would have just won just with that.
Yeah.
Well, the other big one was Song of Ice and Fire.
Oh, that's right. But I don't know all the expansions for that because I've never played it.
Why didn't you name Dilbert the board game?
Because I didn't know he made Dilbert the board game. Is it Dilbert the board game or Dilbert Corporate Shuffle?
Dilbert the board game.
Oh, okay.
Arcadia Quest was the other.
Arcadia Quest. Okay, so yeah. So apparently I failed that one. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. You guys have a good night.